with some to help you with funding for this, because you will need different types of funding. You will need a good payment system to deal with the companies that you contract with. You will need help from retail teams at banks, and you will need maybe a line of credit or a loan or equipment to gear up. So Bank OZK is a wonderful bank with this prospect, and they are very supportive of women-owned and minority-owned businesses in Northwest Arkansas. So we appreciate that from them. Our presenter today is Max Franks, and Max and I actually just took a picture together a little while ago because this marks the 10th year that he and I have worked with small businesses and with business contracting in Northwest Arkansas together. And Max is going to be retiring in October. So Max's office is at the NWAC campus, Northwest Arkansas Community College in Bentonville, and there will be someone new with PTAC. And so I want to introduce Max. He's going to walk you through the process of how to become a certified woman-owned, minority-owned, or disadvantaged business owner to bid on contracts. This is very important to our country. This is a wonderful example of our government trying to right wrongs from the past. Government contracts are reviewed by people, and they're awarded by county, state, city, and federal officials. And in the past, we know there has been government discrimination against people of color, against women in getting contracts. And so our government is trying to right that and bring the tide up for the economy for all business owners. And so Max is going to talk to you about becoming certified, how there are going to be contracts that are set aside. So women, minority, business owners, disabled veterans can bid first, but you've got to be prepared to bid first. And people like Max will help you through that process so that you're properly certified and know how to do it. The Arkansas PTAC office, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, is based in Little Rock, but like I said, we have our own office in Bentonville. And so you can reach out to me if later on you forget how to contact them or you don't get the contact info today. And speaking of the info, all the slides that Max is going to present, Max's contact info, my info, and Steve here at the Rogersville Area Chamber of Commerce's info is going to be emailed to every person who registered. So you're going to get all this information. You'll have all our contact. So today's kind of get you used to it, understand the process. Those of you who don't fall in those categories that are joining us, you aren't a woman-owned business or a minority business or low income or a disabled veteran. You still want to learn this process, because if a contract is set aside and no one who's properly certified or properly qualified applies, the contracts open up to the public. So we want to educate everyone about this opportunity to grow their businesses. So I will now turn it over to Max and let him take over, and we'll be here to monitor in the chat if anybody has any questions. And then of course, we have 3 women here today. So yay for our Entrepreneur Journey series. I'm so excited about that. Any questions, Max will be here to answer, and you can follow up with emails to him because you'll get his email. So thank you all.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Steve, with the Rogers Chamber, and thank you, Bank of the Ozark, for caring so much about your community that you want to find a way to expand the business base that we have today. Today, we're going to talk about a process, as Martha has mentioned. It's a process that you can use from now or 5 years from now. The federal government buys many things, and they spend on average $600 billion a year buying things out of their $1 trillion budgets. And because of legislation that has been passed in the past, they set aside everything under $150,000 for small businesses. It can actually go up as high as $1 million in construction. But the point is, they want to use small businesses that they mandated that anything under $150,000 is set aside for small business. Now, what is a definition of a small business? We're going to talk about that. And as a subcategories of small business, we're going to talk about minority owned and what that is. We're going to talk about service disabled veteran owned and what that is. We're going to be talking about hub zone, which is geographic areas set aside by the federal census for companies that are located in those areas. And we're going to show you where the opportunities are so that you can look at it. We're going to show you how to certify to be a certified minority-owned or woman-owned small business, not only on the federal level, but also on the state level. Because businesses that are certified by the state of Arkansas can be awarded a contract up to $40,000 without bidding it out. And so there are a lot of advantages to being certified, and those are what we're going to talk about today. How you can take your ownership or your unique control of your business and enter into the government marketplace to find products and services that you can provide. First thing I want to talk about is the program here, the PTAC program. This is our statewide PTAC staff. As mentioned earlier, our main office is in Little Rock, but we also have offices up here in Northwest Arkansas Community College and also in Newport on the east side of the state. Deborah Garcia spends half her time in Newport and half her time in Jonesboro, taking care of that area of the state. And Liz Russell and Tim Hicks are officed in Little Rock and take care of the central and southern part of the state of Arkansas. We've been here for over 25 years, and all of our services are paid for by the Department of Defense and through a grant with the University of Arkansas, because they care about economic growth here in the state of Arkansas also. This is our website. On our website, many of the classes that we teach, we turn into a YouTube video so that people can review them later. We also have websites that you can look at that we talk about in this presentation. We also have contact information for all of our counselors. We also have a link to sign up to be a PTAC client. As I said earlier, all of our services are free. We're here to support small business and have been doing it for many years. But now we're going to start talking about what it means to be a small business. And we're going to talk about how it affects you. Whoops. Determining small business set-asides depend upon the value of the procurement. In other words, what they presume the cost is going to be. On the federal level, the federal government can buy most anything up to $10,000. They have to justify the price, don't misunderstand me, but they'll use a large business, a small business, the corner hardware store. They'll use whoever they need to get their product that they need. For just an example, in this lovely room that we're in here, there are tables and chairs. So if one of these chairs would break, they could go to the nearest vendor that had a like chair and just buy it. They would use a government credit card, they would swipe, and that would take care of it. Anything over $10,000 up to $250,000, which is the new threshold starting in October of this year, you will see there is a process that businesses have to register with the federal government to be awarded a government contract. And then if it's over $250,000, they have to have what's called the rule of two. In other words, there has to be at least two small businesses of like kind before they can set it aside. Under $250,000, it's small business, period. So these are the thresholds that you need to remember. 10,000 and under, they can buy anything if they can show the price is reasonable. Over 10,000 up to 250, you have to be a registered federal vendor. And anything over $25,000 has to be advertised on a government website so that you can see these bids in advance. Now, Why should you look into the government market? What is your incentive? Okay, on the screen here, I have the federal government-wide performance for last year. Many of you know the federal government year goes from October to September. So we're getting ready to go into the last month of the current year. But last year, the federal government did 109% of its goal of small businesses getting government contracts. And we have the 5 areas here showing. For example, small businesses, they have a goal of 23%, which will equal to $145 billion were purchased from small businesses in the last calendar year. For women-owned, it was 5.19%. For disadvantaged or minority, it was 10%. For service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, it was 4.39%. And HUBZone, which is geographically located, is the only one of their goals they did not make. They had a 3% goal, but they only did 2.28%. And the reason why is because HUD zones, which are geographic areas of high unemployment, low gross income, sometimes there are not companies in those areas that can provide what the government needs. So it's a little harder for them to do. But even with them not meeting their goal, they still did $13.6 billion worth of government business. Okay. Now, I told you there was a procedure, a way to be a government vendor. And the way that we're referring to here is SAM, Systems for Award Management. There are pirate websites out there that are similar to SAM that will help you register, but they will charge you $479 up to $600 to register, which you can do yourself in 20 minutes. That is one of the reasons why the PTACs were created, is to keep the procedures and the rules to work with federal government free for all American citizens. So if you don't see the red, white, and blue hat in the upper left-hand corner that says sam.gov, you're at the wrong website. The hat is trademarked by the federal government, and the federal government is very jealous. And the only reason I wanted you to see the website is because I want you to understand that anyone who gets paid by the federal government worldwide has to be in this database. It is free. We help people register in the SAM database every day, and then it has a yearly update. A year from now, if you want to play the following year, you just do an annual update that you tell the system if there's been any changes. Have you moved, change your telephone number, anything? You do an update and you're good for another year. If for 1 year you would forget to do it, it will stay in inactive mode for 5 years, waiting for you to need it again. And at the end of 5 years, it will erase your information. So SAM is a very flexible system. It's used by the federal government for purchasing. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what a small business is from the government point of view here. On the screen, and I don't expect everyone to see the fine print, but I want to use 3 of them as an example here. If your company was a sign manufacturer, that's what you do for a living, okay? You would be assigned a 6-digit code called the NAICS code, NAICS. It stands for North American Industrial Classification System. That's the way the government assigns all of their bid opportunities with NAICS codes, and they assign anyone who registers with the government with a NAICS code, so you can find each other. But the point is to determine if you're a small business or not, there's a size standard. It's either millions of dollars gross income, or it's in the number of employees that you have. In this case, a sign manufacturer to be considered a small business, you have to have less than 500 employees. Well, personally, I consider any business that has 500 employees a pretty good sized business, but the federal government is using that as a marker, okay? The next one is, let's talk about construction. You're a general contractor. You would have the next code of 236220, and your size standard for your 3-year average is $39.5 million. Well, if you're building businesses on a regular business, you know, you can figure that kind of revenue can go up very quickly. So that's the reason why it's so much higher. The last one I want to mention is we're going to call them a landscaping, lawn mowing, tree trimming, 561720. And their 3-year average is $19,500,000. So this is how the government determines the size of your business by your annual gross income and your number of employees that you have. And employees also includes the owners, just in case there's any question about that. And when you're registering in SAM, you enter this information and the computer takes your input and your size standards and adds them together. So you are certified as small business in SAM based on that information. Now, let's talk a little bit here about the different kinds of subcategories of small business, the kinds of reasons you came here this morning. As I mentioned earlier, women-owned small business, AA, which we're going to call minority or disadvantaged business, hub zone business, and a little later on, we will talk about the service disabled veteran-owned certification. The reason why we're talking about these three right now is all three of these are certified by the government agency SBA, Small Business Administration. The service disabled veteran-owned currently is being certified by the Veterans Administration. Okay? But right now, I want to talk about the requirements here. The first thing that's required of all small businesses to be certified in any of these general areas that I mentioned here is they have to have an owner that owns at least 51%. Now, in the female category of women-owned small business, it can be 2 women added together that own 51% also. Okay, and they will take that registration after they've done their SAM, and we will show them where they go to register for a woman-owned small business website. And they will certify the owner first, then they will certify her business, just like they do in the 8A and the Hub Zone program. They certify the owner, then they certify the business. And why they do it that way is they want to make sure the owner has one word: control. They don't want someone who owns a business but does not run the business on a day-to-day basis. This is why the reason for these certifications is to give you a leg up, an advantage. I recently was talking to the SBA about a business, about a woman who's fairly well off, and she owns several businesses, and she hires business managers to run her businesses. She cannot be certified as a woman-owned small business simply because she owns so many businesses and she doesn't do the day-to-day control. That is the reason for small businesses being certified in the first place. Now, in SAM, there is an optional section. It is called the SBA Supplemental. And once you are certified, the federal government goes into your SAM and they will check mark whether or not you are certified. For example, this company was certified as an 8A, as a minority company, on October 26, 2016. And this year, that program was extended from 9 years to 10 years because of COVID. And she will graduate in 2026, unless she grows too big for the program before that date, and then we'll let her out of the program. And what I mean by that, if her growth in her business is so big that she makes so much money that it goes above the threshold for the 8A program, then they have to let her out, because it is a business development program for minority and disadvantaged businesses. This is where, if you say you're a minority business, this is where the government goes and certifies you. And then when a bid is out and you're bidding on it, this is where the government can go and check to make sure that you really are. Now, I mentioned that there was a service disabled veteran owned certification. This is an actual bid that was out just the other day. And you'll notice in the lower left-hand corner, it says original set aside for service disabled veteran owned small businesses. So if you're a woman owned business and you're not a service disabled veteran owned business, you could not bid on this. But you could possibly partner with a service disabled veteran owned business, and the two of you team together and bid for this particular job. Okay, but my point is, the purpose of set asides is to set it aside for specific areas of the population to bid on. 23% all small business, and you could bid on them too, because you're a small business before you're any of the subcategories. Okay, but the point of it is, it will tell you. Now, there's one special thing you need to know about the VA. Of all the government agencies, they are the only agency that has been given power by Congress to mandate a certain type of business as preference over another. What I mean by that is, if you're working for the VA or bidding on a job for the VA, they will always pick a service disabled veteran owned business first, a VA business second, a small business third, and if no small business can provide that service, they are allowed to use large businesses. You have a question?
I do.
Okay.
With the service disabled veteran business, is there a certain percentage? Because my brother is a disabled veteran, but he doesn't have the same percentage in the company that I have. So does there have to be a certain percentage?
Yes, 51%
Yes,
ownership.
51% ownership.
In almost every certification, in fact.
Okay.
So what I'm saying here is, if you would see a job out there like this, and it says service disabled veteran owned, you have two choices. If you are eligible, you could bid on it. If not, you don't waste your time, money, and energy following that particular bid, even if it is something that you can do very well. Okay. Now, this is the website that I was just talking about, the Center for Verification Evaluation, and it talks about the 51% ownership. It talks about control, and it talks about the Vets First program. As I said, they're the only government agency that is allowed by law to choose what type of small business they use first. And it's separate from the SBA. And another reason why I brought this up is Congress just passed a new rule that starting in January of 2023, the federal government is moving the certification process from the VA to the SBA. And then they will be certifying all 4 small certifications programs: women-owned, service disabled, hub-zone, and minority-owned will all be certified by the SBA starting in 2023.
And Max, can you talk a little bit for people, I know we've talked about this before, that it's not just changing a piece of paper and saying someone's 51%. You know, I remember you talked about like construction companies, you can't change it to say your wife is 51% owner, but yet she doesn't know how to drive a backhoe and has another full-time job somewhere else and really knows nothing about construction.
Okay, Martha's brought up a good question that happens every once in a while. And there's actually been some lawsuits, the Attorney General of the United States suing companies over this. And what she's saying is, if you claim to be woman-owned small business, we'll use that as an example, and it's a husband and wife own the company, the wife owns 51%, the husband owns 49%. But on all the paperwork, you see his name, not her name. And you call the company and you want to talk about something and she hands him the phone. Is that truly control? You know, I talked about control a minute ago. Day-to-day control the company. Who makes the decisions? You know, you may be signing the paychecks of everyone who works for your company, including yourself, okay? But that is not necessarily control. If tomorrow morning the VA defines control, is it tomorrow morning you're tired of this business, you want to quit, you don't need anyone else's permission to lock the door. Now, how does what happens? I'm going to use the example Martha just used. There was a service disabled veteran-owned company that was getting a lot of contracts. And they got what we call reviewed by the federal government. They came in and did a review. And the gentleman who was supposedly the head of the company was signing all the documents and then going playing golf all day. And he was giving those contracts to another company who was doing all the work. And they were doing a good job. That's not the issue. The point is it was a set aside for service disabled veteran owned. They, the other company that was doing the work, were not a service disabled veteran owned company. And he was just getting a fee from the other company for doing it. And so the federal government sued him and debarred him. Debarred means you are not able to do government contracting again forever. And you can be debarred two ways. You can debar an individual, or you can debar a company. If you debar an individual and they go work for another company, they can't work on a federal contract that your company has. If they debarred a company, that's easy. You can't work anymore. You can't be a subcontractor. You can't be anything. And there is an online debarred list for the federal government. They check out companies before they award contracts to make sure you're not on the debarred list. It's part of their process.
I have another question, this kind of more specific. But with when you have a company, like I have an LLC, and then I have a doing business as. So would the percentage of for example, if I was 51% under the LLC, but the doing business as was my brother's would be 51% under. What does that mean?
Okay. As far as the federal government goes, when they register your company, they do not recognize doing business as. The company contract would be awarded to your company.
Mhm.
And as long as you're in control of your company, who you use as a subcontractor, okay, or who you use as a teaming partner, as long as you do your percentage of the contract, it doesn't matter who does the other. I'm going to use construction as an example here, okay? When you're building a building, there's very few construction companies that do everything. They might have subcontract the roof, or they might subcontract the plumbing. They might subcontract the electrical. They might subcontract the concrete foundation. Now, sure, they're in control of the company. They're running the company, okay? But that's what I want you to understand. If you have a DBA for your company because you have either a second one or you have a division of your company, the contract is still yours and you are responsible. If he does a bad job, they'll never know it because they're going to come talk to you.
And I think it's important at this point to bring up, sometimes when people form their own LLCs, the Arkansas Secretary of State, all that means is you got a piece of paper from the Secretary of State that says your business exists. You legally need to have an operating agreement. And a lot of people, when they're starting, can't afford an attorney or an accountant to do that. So that's something you could contact us at Startup Junkie. We have a list of local accountants, CPAs, and attorneys who will draft that. And that's the agreement that says this business exists. Here are the members. So remember with LLCs, it's membership. Here are the members, the percentages, and here are the managers, and who has authority to take out loans, who has authority to make contracts, who has authority. When there's a bank account, you can have an agreement. No more than 5,000 can come out of the bank account without 2 signatures, etc. So do know you need to have an operating agreement. And a lot of people don't have one because the Secretary of State, even if you send them one, they won't take it. That's not their deal. The whole reason we set up LLCs in this country back in the 80s was to get away from articles of incorporation and bylaws and minute books and all of that mess. And it makes the LLC simple, but we just, the internet too much has made people think, oh, I can be my own lawyer. Oh, I can be my own doctor. Oh, I can be my own accountant. No, you need to get a little bit of help. And we've got some really great small business attorneys and CPAs who will help you draft a valid operating. And here's the great thing about it. Then if in a few years you want to add one of your children, you can just go in and amend it and say, now I'm 51, my brother's 30%, and what would that be? My child is 19. And you can do an amendment. So it's a time to start understanding what it means to be a separate individual, a business. And actually, if your LLC is one name and you use a different public name in Arkansas, that's called a fictitious name. Doing business as, all that means is you're a human who makes money doing something. You've never formed an LLC. So let's start learning to use our terms. So a DBA means I'm Martha and I make pageant dresses in my garage. And so I call it Martha's Pageant Dresses, but it's just me and just my social security number, and I'm just separating it so I can keep up with it for my tax return. When you form an LLC, you are a different person. You don't use your social security number, you use the EIN number, the federal tax ID number, and you have an operating agreement. And if you use a different public name, so maybe the LLC is the Johnson Family Holdings LLC, but the actual name of the business is Johnson Construction, that is a fictitious name, and you do file that with the state. So we just need to start, this is why it's good to talk to people like Max, but when you start dealing with the government contracts, you gotta have all those ducks in a row. So
I may have missed it, but did you say how much the operating agreement costs?
it'll depend. I know accountants who will do the whole thing for you for $250 to $300. If you're going to be doing some complicated contracts with different people, I advise people to go ahead and form a relationship with a local small business attorney. And I've heard of those packages from $500 to $1,200.
Okay.
So it just depends. But we've got a list at Startup Junkie.
But another way to look at an operating agreement is your protection, okay? Because it sets limits, as Martha was saying, how much money can come out of a bank account without 2 signatures. And also it shows the control in the company. So we used to call them business plans when we first started years ago, how you're going to set up your company, what direction are you going to go in. But all of these areas work together. The LLC paperwork that you file with the state is just a step. You already got a business plan. You've already got an operating agreement before you even do that. So what Martha is warning you about is if you would go for a certification, the government's going to ask you for that operating agreement, okay, as part of the paperwork they're requesting, because they want to know for sure. You say you're 51% owner. How do you prove it? And under an LLC, an operating agreement is requirement.
And the LLC laws in all 50 states are different. There's starting to be some national guidelines, but that's why you need a local attorney in your state. In fact, in Arkansas, they just rewrote the LLC statutes last summer. So you need some guidance on that.
If you're part of a partnership and you have a partnership agreement, should you have an operating agreement as well?
If you have a partnership agreement, you need to get to an attorney or an accountant and set up an LLC. Okay, so honestly, an LLC is simpler. And you need to deal with the fact, what if one of the partners dies, goes crazy, or gets disabled? You need to have some language in there about how you buy them out, how you get their percentage, because that becomes a property that passes through your estate or goes into divorce court. So that's my advice. If you've got a partnership, that's cool. Let's transfer it to an LLC to protect everybody.
And all of this sounds a little complicated, but it's part of doing business. It's day to day.
It's not complicated. It's just new.
Yes.
Anybody can learn it. It really is not complicated.
Now, up on the screen, we have a different bid. This is a set aside for woman-owned small business. It's kitchen exhaust hood cleaning services on military installations mainly, but other places. They have places where they need people to come in because they do so much cooking and they want to keep everything sanitary and keep fire risk down. Now, this particular one, as you can see at the bottom, says woman-owned small business program. It says when it came out, when it's due, what it's possibly for. The location happened to be in Virginia at Fort Belvoir. And this again, the point I'm trying to say is the government sets aside these contracts for these social economic classes like women-owned, service disabled, veteran-owned, hub-zoned, minority-owned. And on a federal level, this is what you would see. And when you click on the company, the name of the bid process, you get to see all the paperwork that's involved. Okay, but I want you to see how they advertise them so that you can find these type of bids, just so you can be interested in them. Now, again, as I mentioned a little earlier, these are some of the requirements for the woman-owned small business program. The reason the government came out with a woman-owned small business set-aside program less than 10 years ago is because Congress knew that in our economy, the women-owned growth of small businesses is the fastest growing element of it. And so they wanted to give them a fair shake. As we mentioned at the very beginning, this is Congress doing their job to make up for some deficiencies in the past. Now, obviously, you must be a small business. And we talked a little bit about what makes you a small business. And it's the size standard that's on your NAICS code. The next step is you have to be at least 51% owned and controlled by the women in the business, which is the day-to-day operations in it. There's also a second subcategory of the women-owned small business program. It's called the economic disadvantage women-owned small business program. And there are certain limits on your amount of currency, the amount of property that you own. And it's similar to the minority certification, but I just wanted to bring it up that there is one. Because the women-owned small businesses program is so vital to the American economy, when the SBA came out with the women-owned small business program, they gave them their own website. It is called beta.sam.sba.gov, and it is where you certify at, beta.certify.sba.gov. I'll repeat that a second time. But the point of it is, this particular small business administration website is just for certifying to be a woman-owned small business program. Now, I get this question all the time. Well, how long does it take? Because they'll see a good government bid come out and say, I want to go after that bid. I'm sorry to say, in the current COVID client, that the woman-owned small business program is just about the second longest certification program out there. It's running about 4 months. And when I say 4 months, that means you are good at paperwork, providing what they need. Okay? A couple of weeks ago, their website crashed and was down. And so we had a lot of telephone calls that week about what's going on. But my point is, for each of these certifications, SAM is for small business in general, the VA does one, and then the SBA does the other 3, and they each have their own website that you go to certify. Yes, sir.
So if you can go back to the previous slide, there was a requirement that said there that your network cannot be more than 700 people.
That is for the economically disadvantaged women-owned small business program. And what they're saying is your net worth. Now, they give you certain elements that they don't care about, like your house, for example. There is certain information that if you, in your 401k, for example, that can be allowed to not do in certain situations. But what they're wanting to make sure is that you truly are an economically disadvantaged woman-owned business when they certify it. So they do have limits on that. On the women-owned small business program, it's a much higher threshold. Good question. Now, this is for the 8A, or what we're going to call the minority certification. The 8A program was the very first certification that was ever given out by the Small Business Administration. It's been around since the 60s at least, okay? And when it came out, what it was determined is they had 5 areas of small business that they considered disadvantaged. They were African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Hawaiians, Eskimos, and Eastern Asian. And these were American citizens in government trying to do business, and they were having a trouble getting a fair shake. So they developed what's called a business development program. It is titled 8A. This is the longest procedure as far as being certified that we have in government. It takes on average 9 months. Okay. Again, they have their own website to go to, but it's based today in 2021. Anyone that can apply that want to show that they have a social disadvantage causing them an economic disadvantage. And I want to give 2 examples here to get this driven home. There was a war veteran that came home from the Gulf War. He had both legs blown off from below the knee. So he did his work in a wheelchair. He owned his company, he was growing the company, and he went in to get a loan to buy some new equipment to grow his business. And for some reason, the bank turned him down. And we won't get into why, but the point of it is, he was saying it was because I'm in a wheelchair, I don't have legs, and so I have a social disadvantage because of my physical handicap, and it's causing me to have an economic disadvantage because I can't go everywhere I would if I had 2 legs. Okay, so he was allowed to be in the 8A program. The other one is much more common, one that I personally had experience with. I had a white woman who owned a janitorial company, and she was growing. She was very good at hiring people and doing things like that. And she'd been in business like 3 to 4 years. And she went to a loan. Of course, this, you got to remember, was about 15 years ago. And she applied for a loan in her name or company. She banked at that bank and everything. They knew her finances. And across her application was written, no manager experience. And they gave her back their application and said, you don't qualify. Instead of suing them like they would today, she took it to the SBA and said, because I'm a woman, they won't give me money to grow my business. And they let her in the 8A program, and she was in that program for 8 years of the 9 years it's normally in it. And she graduated from it because she got her business built and it grew out of the 8A program. But the point of it is, when you think of 8A or minority, think business development program. They help you, they do a lot of, government gives you a lot of stuff to grow your business, okay? But it's also a very one hard to get into. And then after 9 years, you graduate out of the program. And once you're out of the program, you're out. You can't get in it again a second time, even if you have a second business, because they certify you as an individual, and then they certify your business that you have control when you run your business. Okay? That's what the 8A one is for disadvantage. Now, the requirements, again, are the same thing. You must be a small business. You have not previously participated in an 8A program before. You own 51% and you're controlled by systems, but it also says that you are socially and economically disadvantaged. That's what you have to show the government. That is totally under your control. Again, just like the other economic disadvantage under the woman-owned, that your personal net worth has to be under 750,000 K, or gross average income of 350K, or have assets less than 6 minutes. Okay, like I said, this is for disadvantaged companies. That's why there are limits on it. Now, we talked about federal here for about an hour. Let's talk about the state of Arkansas. There are also programs in many states. They're mainly called DBEs, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. Okay? And what I want to talk about is that in Arkansas, they have 3 categories. They have minority-owned, they have woman-owned, and they have service-disabled veteran-owned. They are carbon copies of the federal disadvantaged groups, okay? And in Arkansas, we have 2 agencies that certify you. The first one is the DBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. The second one is the Women and Minority Business Enterprise. The first one is done by Arkansas Department of Transportation. So you can imagine thinking highways, thinking roads. They have signs above the roads. They have to be mowed. They have to have dump trucks to bring gravel. They have to repair things. So if you have any way that you might have anything to do with that type of area, the certification from MoDOT or RDOT, Arkansas Department of Transportation, and they set a goal. Now their goals are not as high in percentage wise as the federal is, but they do set a goal every year. And as I mentioned to you, if you are certified under the state of Arkansas, they can go up to $40,000 on a project, and they do not have to bid it out. They can award it to a single vendor, okay? The other one, the minority and woman-owned small business, is where the veteran also goes, and it's done by the second group that does the state of Arkansas. That's the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, the AEDC. Now, both of these groups are online. Both of them have online program to certify and everything. They're relatively quick. They usually certify within 45 days. But I'm going to be a little brutally honest here about these 2 programs, okay? It is your job to market to the state agencies once you're certified. With the federal government, we're gonna show you the two places that the federal government advertises, you know, you're out there. But with the state government, once you are certified, they put the burden upon the vendor to bring that to the attention of the buyers in the state. So I don't want you to think once you're certified, all of a sudden the state of Arkansas is going to give you a bunch of contracts, because it does not work that way. Just like with federal contracts, there has to be a need for your services. Okay? And you have to provide what they need to correct their issue. Now, the first group, or the second group that I was talking a little bit about here, the minority owned and women owned for the state of Arkansas. It also includes the certification. They have an online directory. There's no cost to be certified as a minority or women owned business. It takes between 30 to 45 business days to complete the process. Once a complete application has been received, submitting an incomplete application will delay the overall certification process. And we recently hosted the Arkansas Economic Development Commission on our Zoom, and they walked through the process recently of how to be certified by the state of Arkansas under theirs. And in my opinion, it's a much easier certification than the federal is, but they still want the same type of information we were talking about earlier. You know, business plans, operating status, you know, who signs the checks. In most cases, they all want to see tax returns. And if you've only been in business 1 year, you may only have one tax return, okay? They want to see all that information, okay? But I want to talk for just a minute about the other services of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. They have a lot of other services. They are a state agency. They don't just certify small businesses. They talk about financing. They talk about government business. There are many areas of the state of Arkansas where you can get free, I don't want to use the word advice, I want to say free information. Even in here, in Fayetteville, there is a group called the Arkansas, I just want to bring it, Small Business Technology Development Center, Arkansas Small Business Technology Development Center. They are an offshoot of the SBA, and they give out free information on many areas of commercial contracting. And of course, we have the star here for Startup Junkie, who could do everything they could do. But the point of it that I'm trying to make is, when you need something done, there are resources available in Arkansas for you to go look at. And if you don't know who to go to, there are enough of us resource partners that you can call us, and we can at least point you in the right direction to get some information you need to grow your company in Arkansas.
Max, I'm gonna say for a second, if everybody wants, maybe take a break and get, any of y'all want to get, we've got all these free lunches from Bank OZK. Love y'all to grab a lunch. Feel free to eat while you're watching. I've got drinks here in the cooler. So
We're going to take a 5-minute break.
y'all want to grab some food. Java dudes, it's good stuff. Oh, sure, yeah, pass those out, yeah. This is, ladies, this is Giovanni from the chamber, and he's giving you a handout about, the first ever large scale minority business fair we're gonna have in October at an event center here in Rogers, so be sure and help spread the word. It's gonna be pretty awesome. Give me 5, Giovanni, I heard about you.
There's my phone number, my email, I'll help you with registration if you need to, or any questions.
Get a table or just come participate. There's gonna be a pitch contest. People can pitch about their business. It's right over $1,000 prize, like $2,000 prizes.
one that judges will choose, and one everybody in the audience will vote for. So if you have a lot of friends and family, you can bring them to vote for you. So, yeah. Yeah, great idea. So thank you. Awesome. You need some chicken salad.
That was interesting what you said about, here in Arkansas, that. It's not that they don't post it or.
Well, all government bids over 25,000 are posted on SAM.gov. State bids has two websites. They have the state of Arkansas, and they have a brand new one. It's called Arkansas Buy. That's a brand new website. It's only been open about 60 days. And they post all government bids there. The difference between the federal government and the state government is the federal government posts everything 25,000. State government has a higher threshold. That's why you have to market to your local government agencies more.
Okay. Have you
Small.
finished filling this out? Yes.
Like Arkansas Community College is a state institution. And so everything up to almost $40,000, they don't have to market at. As long as they can justify the price, they've got a local vendor they can use. So it's a little difficult. That's why we're helping to have these things to make you aware of what's going on. Crazy.
Java dudes.
We have about 2 minutes and we'll go back into it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Bank OZK.
There's always something to do with that.
Or Max, oh yeah, every time.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get started again. And I want to talk about government bids here, where to find them, and talk about the set-asides again for disadvantaged, woman-owned, service disabled, veteran-owned, and HUD zone contracts. This is SAM.gov. SAM.gov originally was set up to be the website for people just to register with the federal government. Okay? But as of May 24th, they have merged government bid opportunities and 2 or 3 other websites under one webpage. So that if you want to register, this is the place that you register. If you want to see government bids, this is the place to go. So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to show you how to find government bids. What we're going to do is on the left-hand side here, you'll see the 8 areas that you can do things with in SAM. We're clicking on government contracting, and it opens a search page. So what you need to do is go right down here where it says advanced search. It opens up a big search field on the left-hand side. Now what we're going to do is do a very simple search. Then we're going to show you how to do 2 other searches. But the most simple search is under the keyword box right here at the top. I'm typing in the word Arkansas. Now what that did was bring up a whole bunch of bids. But since this database has been around for a long time, you'll notice the first bid at the top was from 2018. And that doesn't do you any good. So you want to clarify not only Arkansas, but when you want to see them. So if you come down 2 areas to the date, you go down to where it says update date, I'm going to put it in for the last month. Okay? Now all of a sudden, we have 67 bids. They are similar to the bids that I showed you today. You'll notice the first bid, the bid that we're looking at, it was dated yesterday, and it's from the VA, okay? And it's to find full-size diesel utility vehicles. Well, that's a very expensive item in the first place. And all bids on this website are over $25,000 to start with. So we're going to click on the name of the procedure, which is full-size diesel. By clicking on the name, it opens the bid, and then you can scroll down and you can see everything here. But the thing I want to show you is on the 3rd block down, it says classification. It says original set aside, total small business. Now this was from the VA. If you'll remember earlier, I told you the VA is the only government agency by law that can choose their set aside the same every time unless there's something special they're looking for. And you'll see in the area right the 3 lines down, they use the NAICS code 336112, which is a light truck or utility vehicle manufacturing. But what that means in English is if you're a wholesaler, which means you're not a manufacturer, you can provide that product. You're the same as a manufacturer. Wholesalers and manufacturers are the same in the government world. And if you scroll down further, you'll start seeing a description. You'll see attachments that have the exact details that they're looking for. They're actually buying 3 of them. Down at the bottom, you can see the contracting officer, who to call. In this case, it's Janice Millington McClinton, and her telephone number. So there's email and telephone number. The contracting office is in Ridgeland, Mississippi. Even though the bid is for the state of Arkansas, the person that's signing the paper is in Ridgeland, Mississippi at their contracting office. So So this is all information you would see in a government bid. You see who it's from, when it's due, the NAICS code, any details are listed there, who started it. But I want to show you one other thing. Down here at the very bottom, you'll see the history. Now, this one shows that it came out the 30th of August. If they made a change to it, we'll call that an amendment, okay? Again, it would show in the history when it happened. If they awarded this contract, again, it would show under the history part so that you'd be able to see the total area from start to finish this government bid on the website. And this is the first kind of search I want to show you. The next kind of search I want to show you is we're going up to the top. Then I'm just hitting the back button. I'm not clicking anything special, just hitting the old back button and moving it back to here. Now I'm leaving Arkansas here in there, okay? And I left in the last week or so, those kind of bids. But we want to be a little more distinct. We want to make a little bit more information because you may not see something for your company. So I hit the back button again. And we're going to hit the plus sign and go to government contract opportunities. There, and back. Okay. Now it still has Arkansas there. It still has the date that it's due. But we're going to add a NAICS code. We're going to go down here to product service information. Then we're going to go down here to NAICS code, and I'm putting in 561,720. That's the NAICS code for janitorial services. So what we asked for is in the state of Arkansas has a janitorial bid come out within the last time frame that we've asked for. Okay? So when I click on that name that came up, a bunch of them came up. In fact, we got 5 of them. Okay? But again, they're not in date order. So we have to go back to our dates. And we have to tell it when we want them. We're going to put them in the past month this time. Okay? And the last month, we have had 2 of them come out. One in June, which is a little more month as far as I'm concerned, and one in August. One is for park cleaning, and one is for another different government agency with the VA. One's cleaning. So to find your specialty, to find just what your business does and not look at all the bids, sometimes you have to add something special like your NAICS code. I narrowed it down. If I had not put Arkansas, you would see bids all the way across the United States. Now, if you sell products, you could ship anywhere. But when you're doing services, your people may not want to go to New Hampshire to do a cleaning job, okay? And if you ever have trouble finding your bid because you're not sure what NAICS code the government used, you just call your local PTAC and we'll show you what they're using to find your government opportunities. The 2 things I want you to remember about SAM is 1, that's where the bids are located, okay? But it's only the bids over $25,000. Okay? Bids over $25,000. Now I'm going to do one more search for you because I want you to learn how to feel comfortable with this. I'm taking you back to the home page. Okay, we're at the home page. Let's say we want to look at government bids. So we come right down here. We click on contract opportunities. We go right here and click advanced search. This time, instead of putting in a keyword, we go down to the place of performance. In other words, where is the bid going to be taken care of? and we drop the state down. Go down and click on Arkansas. Now again, it shows us a bunch of bids, but they're not in any order. So I'm going to the state. I'm hitting the date of the past week. Okay. Now in the past week, we had 28 bids, 25 on a page. Yes, there are bids for every different kind of thing you could think of. But the point is, I wanted to show you how to find them. As we scroll, I missed that one. Back to the week. Now as I scroll down, okay, here's the one I want to look at right here. This one came out on August 27th. It's from the Department of Defense, the Air Force, which most likely means Little Rock Air Force Base. Okay, they need a storm drain repair. Okay, now to click on any bid, you just click on the name of the bid. That opens it up. Then you scroll down. The first box tells you the ID number. If you're ever interested in a bid, just write down the ID number. You can find any bid that's out there just by writing down that number. Okay? If you call me and say, Max, I saw a bid out there, but I can't find it again, I'll ask you, do you have the ID number? If not, I have other ways to look them up. But the point of it is, if you were talking to the contracting officer who's over this particular bid, they have more than one bid at a time. Okay? If you told them you're looking for FA 4602R00100, she can pull up her file and say, what do you want to know? Okay? You're helping them out too. Okay, the next thing you see it shows you is with the Department of the Air Force. Okay? Go down. Yes, you will. General information tells you it's a bid, when the bid came out, when the bid is due back in. It's like any other bid. Next thing, it shows you it's a set aside for small business, which means anything under $250,000 basically now, starting October 1st. And it says the NAICS code is 237310 because it's a storm drain next to a street. And it tells you where in Little Rock. And then it gives you some verbiage telling you instructions about where to bid, how to bid, and all this. It already has an amendment. The purpose of this amendment is to change the administration name statement of work. And there's another amendment, Amendment 2, Amendment 3. There's the files that you need to look at everything. And then underneath it, there's the point of contact. This one is at Little Rock Air Force Base. There's Jash Aneche and Stephanie David. Then down at the bottom, there's the history. And what's interesting about this to me is I showed you that it came out on August 27th. And the same day, they made 2 amendments to it. And since it was the same day, it doesn't show you different. So you can see the due date on the updated date on the side, even though it came out that day before the ink was dry, they made 1, 2, 3 amendments to it.
Why does that happen, Max?
Poor planning. Honestly, they'll discover they made a mistake. I just want to remind you of something I said at the very beginning. You remember that the federal year goes from October to September 30th? They're trying to spend their money as fast as they can here now. They got to get this bid out there and get it awarded before September 30th, or they have to take it out of next year's money. Because any money you haven't spent by September 30th, the government agency has to give it back to the treasury. It doesn't flow over in every instance. So this time of year, you'll see bids a little faster, a little furious, than you do the rest of the year. And that's one of the reasons why. But again, it still comes back to poor planning. Okay, but anyway, the point of it is margin. So if you wanted to see any of it. Now, the other thing I want to point out to this one is for those that have never worked with government contracts, state or any other kind, they use what's called the Davis-Bacon wage determination. And what that is they have an average government wage that you have to pay if they work on a contract. Now, let me give you a couple of quick examples just so you'll understand, okay? Let's say you pay your bulldoze operator $20 an hour, which is a good wage, okay? But you don't provide benefits. You don't provide health care and vacation. You just give him money to do his job, which is a good thing, okay? But on a government contract, okay, the wage statement says for your area of the state, the average bulldoze person on a government contract might make $25 an hour. And if you don't provide health and welfare benefits, you have to pay him $3 more an hour on top of that. So if in the morning he's over here doing a job for you, you're paying him $20 an hour. But in the afternoon, he's working on the government contract that you got, you're paying him $28 an hour, okay? Of course, you have to keep that separate. Because if they ever come in as the federal government and they want to review how you spent the money you were given for your government contract, that's one of the first things they look at. Did you pay your employees a government wage for working on the contract? I do want to make one differential here, okay? We're talking about small businesses. And sometimes businesses are so small, it's mom and dad only on the contract. In other words, the owners do not have to abide by a wage scale. Only employees do.
What about contractors?
Which one?
What if you employ, well, you have contractors or vendors?
Anyone who is not an owner gets paid the government wage scale. There's no exception to that. We've been asked questions about 1099 and, subs and, everything. If they're not the owner, they're required to use the wage scale. It's just a government fairness rule is the way they got it out there, okay? But anyway, and the other thing that every company should be using, because it's a state law, but it's a big one on the federal law, is you have to have liability insurance. Okay? If you're driving a vehicle, I hope you have liability insurance anyway, okay? But when you go on a state or a federal facility and you accidentally hit a building, knock over a sign, run into someone else's car, whatever, that's the first thing they come after. Is we want to know who your liability insurance is with. And some people have to have them up to $500,000 if they're, a business. Like if you do construction and have trucks and backhoes and all those things, it's not normal for you to have $500,000 in liability insurance. Will you ever use it? Most times, no. I mean, you're careful, you do your job, there's no problems, but the requirement is that you have it. There's a third requirement. I just want to bring this up to those people that do work for services. We call it bonding. Bonding is technically an insurance policy for your business, okay? And bonding would be like, let's say you won a contract for $67,000 to clean up the storm damage over here in a park. And halfway through it, for whatever reason, the owner died, you ran out of funds, you can't pay the bills, whatever, you quit and go away, the government would pull your bonding to pay for another contractor to come in and finish the contract. Bonding is technically a insurance policy that is issued to you by a company, and they do it. It is not like car insurance, okay? Car insurance, as long as you can pay your monthly fee on your car insurance, everyone's happy. Bonding, they look at your business, because they're not going to give you $1 million bond if you've never done a job over $10,000. It has to do with your company, okay? Just want to bring that to your attention. Okay, last thing I want to remind you of over here, going back to the top. And I'm just hitting the back button again, like I mentioned a second ago. That takes me back to my search. Now, the first time we searched by keyword at the very top. This time, to find in Arkansas, we did it by place of performance. Okay? Keep knocking it off for some reason. Do it again. We hit the drop down. We hit contract opportunities. We go down to the bottom. We click on place of performance. We click on Arkansas. Took us there. And then for dates, to get it most current, okay, you click on date. You go to the second box. It says most recent. And this time we'll do it for the last week. Okay? And then if you want to break it down further, you can add an NAICS code, or you can just look at it. Okay? And these are bids. Now, if any you want to check for just set-asides, for example, because you're a woman-owned company, and you want to use that advantage that you have, under a regular contract, they will look that you are a woman-owned company, and if you are selected, they will get an extra brownie point or check mark on their goals because you are. But that's if it's a small business in general. But if it's a set aside for woman-owned or 8A or HubZone, you have to be that to bid on it. And if you are awarded, of course, that's a great thing for them. But over here, under the drop down, there is a link for set aside, and you can click it. And it starts giving you many different ways to set aside. There goes the drop down. And there's partial set aside, 8A set aside, historical, HubZone set aside, service disabled set aside. So we'll just pick that. Pick service disabled set aside. And remember, we'd only picked it for a short range, but 2 of them showed up. And both of them, of course, are with the Veteran Affairs, because they're the first one that can use it. All government agencies will use the 4 different subcategories: the HubZone, the service disabled, the woman-owned, and the minority. But VA does it first all the time. That's the point I was trying to make earlier about congressionally given them. Okay? But you could do women-owned, you could do whatever, and whatever time frame that you want. Now, we do have a free service that we provide you that is called bid matching. And what we do is we have a big computer, and we throw in what you're looking for, your NAICS codes, some keywords, what kind of set aside you're looking for. And every day when we're done searching the federal and the state government, we email them to you. And in each bid that we email you, there's a link back to where we found it, like it was on FedBizOps or SAM.gov. You'll just click that link, it'll take you back there so you can see the original information yourself. Okay? And we provide that because the federal government pays for it to help you find government bid opportunities. Okay? But that's SAM. That's the first key that you have to do. Without SAM, you cannot certify in any of the other subcategories. SAM is what makes you a small business. Now, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to go back to the home page of SAM. And on this time, instead of clicking on government contracts, we're going to look at a SAM registration. We're going to click on entity registration right here. And it tries to explain to you what you need to do to be registered as a small business. On the right, it says get started. And I told you after a year, you have to renew if you're already in the system, what you have to renew. Okay. But since we already have a sign in and all that, we're going to see if we can sign in and show it to you. SAM is set up by email address. Well, hallelujah, I passed my course for typing after all. We got to do it so they can see, I guess. I can see why now. Okay, every time you log in, you are going to get a security code sent to you by the federal government. And that way, if someone looks over your shoulder or hacks your email or any of that other stuff, they still can't get in because they won't know what security code the government is going to send you at that particular moment. We want never. Now I'm logged into SAM. You see up there in the right-hand corner, it says sign out. Okay. And if I go down, I can go home. I can do whatever. But we're going to hit entity registration. I'm going to go to advanced search. Now what I'm doing is showing you what one looks like. I'm going down here to where it says entity. And right below it, I'm going to type in just an Arkansas-based name. Okay, it's saying that I didn't give it enough information. All right, do it again. Be honorary today. This year we're going to be honorary today. So we'll do it a different way. So just come down here to that time you did argue with me. Okay, I just went to a big corporation. This is what your contracting officer will look at. This particular one expires January 18, 2022. It has their address. It has the DUNS number that just tells the government who you are. And if you wanted to see more information about them, you would click on their company name. Don't know why it didn't show up. Got a different one. Sam is having a problem. Now they're at least being honest to us. Sam is down for maintenance right at the moment. So I can't show you a complete registration. But to register as a federal vendor, just to get your foot in the door, you have to have 6 pieces of information. These are free, okay? The first one, as of today, you have to work with a credit organization called Duns and Bradstreet. The federal government pays Dun and Bradstreet to keep 5 pieces of information about every country in the world that works with them. They want a company name, a point of contact, an address, and a telephone number, and what you do. And as soon as you give it to them, immediately they give you a 9-digit number that's called a DUNS number. DUNS is an acronym for Data Universal Numbering System, and it just tells the government your company name and your company address. You take that to SAM and you register it with your federal tax ID number or social security number, depending on whether you're a sole proprietor or incorporated business. They want to know how you're set up with the company government, and that's a bunch of check mark boxes. If you're a sole proprietor, you check mark sole proprietor. If you're an LLC, you check mark LLC. The third thing they want is, what is your favorite NAICS code? Like people, whether you're landscaping, you sell tires, you sell food, whatever it is. I get calls all the time asking me, Max, what's the federal NAICS code for plumbing? And I look them up and give it to them. The fourth thing they want is, they presume someday you're going to get paid. Okay, you're going to win a contract. So they're going to ask you a little bit of banking information. And then the fifth and final thing they're going to ask you is, who is your government business point of contact? Now, if you're a big company like Boeing that's got 12,000 employees, you appoint someone. If you're a mom and pop business and you got 5 people in your company, it's obviously going to be you. So it's name, address, telephone number, email. You submit it. It goes through the double check process to make sure you're who you say you are. They issue you a 5-digit code called a CAGE code. CAGE, C-A-G-E, Commercial and Government Entity Code. Federal law says to be awarded a contract or be paid, you have to have a CAGE code. Okay? Now, we've got just a couple more things here, and then we're going to have some questions here. That's fun. What in the world happened there? Okay, this is where we left off. We'll go to the next page here. RDOT, the other place I told you the state of Arkansas does their DBE, Disadvantaged Business website. This is just a screenshot of their website. And Natasha Halbert, who is the POC for that particular program here in Arkansas. Next, one of the things that I work with small business every day on is how to put your company in front of government contracting officers. How to advertise. Is that a better way to say it? We call it marketing. Okay. Now, when you register with the federal government, there was the optional section that I showed you where they mark what kind of business you are, that they do that. But also, we have a little 4-page thing we give you if you want it to help you build what's called a capability statement. It's a 1-page piece of paper, 8.5 by 11, where you can put your company information. So if you're working with a contracting officer or you're just marketing to a state or federal agency, trying to get your name out there, you can email it to them. And it tells them the information that they're interested in, okay? There may not be a bid out today for lawn mowing. We call it landscaping, okay? But if that's what you do and you build this and you send it to them, it helps them get to know you. Because otherwise, what does a contracting officer know about your business by looking at all this government paperwork. They know what you've told them, right? You've added numbers like NAICS codes, you've added points of contact. They know nothing about you. This is a way to advertise to government contracting officers. And I have people that use these for big corporations, like Walmart and other things they're trying to sell to them. They have something hard copy. You can say, I have a great website, and you may have the best website of anyone in the city, okay? The point is, they have to go to that website. They have to find that website. This is a way to send them to your website, okay? It's just that one piece of paper you put together the way you want it, that shows the world what you can do, how to get a hold of you, what to do. It's an excellent marketing tool for your company. And it's free because you do it. Okay. We also do other kinds of training that's free to people that are our clients. We hire a company that is called Govology. Govology is a third-party company that provides training. They also do it to the commercial world. So you'll see there's a cost of $75 there. But if you're a client of Arkansas PTAC, they waive those fees just because you're our client. We give you a coupon code. Anyone who uses Amazon knows what that means. We give you a coupon code which you put in when you're registering, and you get to see that online training totally free. And these are set up so you can see them when you're wanting to. When you're on your couch and it's Saturday afternoon and you want to see that presentation, you can look it up. Now, this is our contact information. The U of A system in Little Rock, Bentonville, Newport, our email, our website, and our staff contact information. You will all receive a copy of this PowerPoint so that you can look at it. It has the links to all the certification programs. It has the links to all of SAM. It has everything direct there so you can look at them anytime you want to. And you'll have our contact information so you can call us if you have any questions. Apparently this is not what I wanted to.
Max, we've only had one question come in
Okay.
that you haven't answered, or that you could. It's kind of your thing. So we have a question that says, I am wondering if there are funding sources, certifications specific to women in the STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics industry. This person is developing a business centered around the use of drones, and just wondered is there anything special around scientific or things like that?
The federal government has a program that is used by 10 government agencies. It is called SBIR, Small Business Innovative Research. And these are grants that you apply for. The thing you have to keep in mind, 10 different agencies do 10 different things. They want specific things, all right? So if you're working with the Department of Energy on their SBIR program, obviously it's going to be energy related, okay? So the answer to your question is yes, there are government grants out there. Now, SBIR has 3 levels, okay? Level 1 is limited to a certain amount of $100,000. And what it's for is to help you develop the idea that you're going, okay? If you do real good and they like your results, you could apply for level 2, which is prototype time. Time when they want you to put your theory and your research into a solid product. Okay? Step 3, they want you to be able to market and sell this product. And of course, the government gets first call because they're funding you. Okay? But the point of it is, the 3rd level is a lot more money to take an idea prototype and put it into a marketable production facility for actual selling. And so, yes, the answer to your question is, now, will that hit every element of small business? I'm going to say no.
No, and a lot of that is to develop a new and innovative product. So if this person, I'm not sure this person didn't give us more information, but like if you just want to start a drone business, taking pictures of properties for real estate agents, that's not going to be something for SBIR, but talking about that with drones, have you seen any government contract opportunities for
I have
people to
seen
do
some
drone work?
government contracts that wanted to use drones for do what's called line checks, boundary checks, so they can see. I have seen some in hurricanes where afterwards they wanted to survey the damage. And so they hired a company that did drones to survey an area. And you always see people on the YouTube internet that are doing them after some disaster because they want to do it for fun. We want to do it for business. Yes, there are a few, but they're few and far between.
Have you ever seen anything like that in Arkansas?
No.
No.
I did have seen something.
Now, I would like, since we have 3 people who came to be with us in person, if each of you might want to tell Max about what kind of business you have, and he can just kind of give you some off-the-cuff comments about the types of contracts he's seen, things that are out there, if you want to.
Let's just start over here on the far side.
I'm Viva, and I run a moving business.
Moving.
Yeah.
During COVID and during some of the major disasters that we've had recently, the biggest contract I've seen for you is there was a couple of areas they knew were going to have flooding, different, and the different agencies hired moving companies to go to their offices in these areas and just load everything up and bring them north. I've seen the Department of Defense, they have people that are transferred from military base to military base. And of course, they have to move their stuff and the government's paying for it, Do they move supplies and logistics? Yes, they do. But if you get a call one day and they want you to move a tank, that's just not a simple thing to do. So a lot of it of that kind is specialized. It goes through brokers. So you would find out who the broker is for, say, Little Rock Air Force Base. So there is some work out there. I'm not going to say there's a whole lot of work. On the state venue, in recent time, I have not seen one for just moving. Okay, I've seen some for special projects, like they were moving an entire office. They were renting or leasing here and now moving over here, and they're very detailed. You have to move everything. In your business, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about for me. I can't imagine that. They come in, someone else packing my stuff? I don't think so. But anyway, that's what's available to you. And like I said, with our free search, you don't have to do anything. Once you go through the paperwork and get all set up and everything, we find them for you, and if there's some available. You're also only limited by one thing: how big a geographic area you want to do business in. Do you want to do it just in Arkansas? You willing to do it in the 5 states that touch Arkansas, or do you do nationwide? Because obviously there's government business all the way across this nation. I have some logistics companies that do worldwide because people, the United States moves stuff everywhere. Any other question? Okay, ma'am, what do you do?
I'm with Create Bridges. My name's Muriel Wiley, and Create Bridges is an economic development project through the University of Arkansas. We cover tourism, retail, entertainment, and hospitality. So it's my job to kind of get information and take that back to them and help them with their small business development, specific to the rural areas. But I'm also, I told Ms. Martha I was double dipping because I'm also here for myself, not just for my job. I personally am starting a communications company. So press releases, news announcements, marketing campaigns, radio commercials, things like that.
We had a company that came to me about 8 weeks ago. What they have is they have an advertising company. And I said, well, what kind of advertising do you do? He said, we do all the billboards out there and everything. And it just so happened, I think they knew about it. The Army Corps of Engineers was doing a statewide program right now to really push them. They were even buying this stuff that you would probably know about, where they wrap your car. It's a readable stuff. They did all that for them. That was their first contract. They were very happy.
That's
They walked into one. Doesn't happen that well. What do you do?
I am in the process of getting my contractor's license. I develop and build mainly small cottages. I just finished a project in South Fayetteville. And what I would love to do is solar. And I can't get contractors to really buy into the concept of solar because it's more costly when you build a house. And I'm just trying to figure out how to get that started.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question because it's my hearing, not your talking, okay? Did you say sewing?
Solar energy.
Okay, solar energy. Okay.
That's what I would like.
Obviously, the government does what's called community block grants. That's where they give money to cities. And then the cities spend the money to do things like that. Solar right now is a big thing commercially.
Right.
There's, you see commercials on TV all the time, you know, $15 solar, all that kind of stuff. With the government, they call it green.
Right.
Because that's the way they do it. I don't see as much of that, to be honest with you, because that's usually what the architecture firms, the engineering firms, they're the ones that are dealing with that on the federal level. Okay, state, I really haven't thought about it much, but obviously it's a way of the future to a certain degree. Everyone's going to be green one of these
I
days.
know, this seems like I'm a little bit before my time because the contractors, they're just not even, they're not interested in it. So that's the direction I'm planning on moving with my homes that I build.
That's where I would be working with the Arkansas Small Business Technology Development.
I already work with them,
Okay,
have a good relationship.
Very good.
Started in Little Rock
they're the best one.
and.
Down
I
here
work
in
with
Fayetteville,
them.
1 block off the square.
Yeah, Laura is my person.
Very good.
So when you say solar installations or solar,
Solar energy,
like,
like the solar panels that are on top of.
all right, so installing them or you wanna
When I
sell
build,
them or what?
no, when I build homes,
Yeah.
I would like to build homes that already have, that you build with solar as the energy source.
Okay, so it's not that you're gonna install solar systems.
As a part of the build,
Yeah.
yeah, as a part of the build.
Okay. Well, that's basically, now what you guys have said, what you're looking for, I'll tell you what I do real quick. What I do on a day-to-day basis is people call me about anything to do with federal or state contracting. Some people want to get into SAM, some people want NAICS codes. Some people are having internet problems like the one I showed you earlier about where SAM was having a problem. Hey, what do I do? Seriously, they have legitimate concerns. And so we work with it, because if there's a government bid out there and you're bidding on it and you run into one of these interruption problems, they don't wait for you. That's why they call me. I'm your free resource. Okay. And that goes for state bids too. The other day, probably, I just want to give you the opposite ends of the extreme. I had a guy who was getting ready to bid on a bid, and the bid was due on Friday. And he had asked email, which is what the contracting officer requested, him to send in questions. And he didn't get an answer. So he tried calling him, and he didn't get a call back. So he did what was smart. He called me. And I called his boss. And I said, we have a contracting officer that's non-responsive to small business. That's what I'm supposed to do. And he got the problem took care of. But the point is, he did his job, I did my job to make someone else do their job. Okay, and that way, contracting officer has no idea who's turned him in. Let's put it that way, okay? Because I'm the one who did. Because I'm part of the process. Okay, so that's what we do. We're here to help you work on what you're interested in. Now, right now, I told you we're in that hard month of the year, September. We're ending one and starting another. Everybody's trying to spend their money because they're going to get new money. Okay, so I just want to make you aware of there's some special things going on now that's not the rest of the year. Okay.
And you said, you were talking about becoming a member.
A member of my group called PTAC.
Okay.
You go to our website, you fill out a 15-question form, name, address, telephone number, what you want to do, what you want us to do, and it's on our website, and you're automatically a member, and you know everything I do is free, so it's not going to cost you anything. And if you ever need assistance, you want to use the Govology, use our coupon code, whatever you need. And if I'm on vacation, I've got 2 other offices in the state. It doesn't stop because I'm not there. You just call up the home office and say, here's what I need.
And if in a few months, any of you want to gear back up and work on this, you can contact me. I've got my card there. You can just go to startupjunkie.org, go to team, contact me. I'm always in contact with the PTAC office in Little Rock, and when Max retires, I'm very sure they will contact us and let us know who the new person is. And even if they don't have somebody up here, we can get you connected with Little Rock and get you help. So you can always reach out to Startup Junkie. We should always know who's available to help you or connect you with PTAC.
Okay, when this is over, and I'm just about there, sometime within the next 24 hours, you'll be getting an email with all of these PowerPoint slides and everything else on it. It gives you a place to contact us and so forth. And so if you need something, that's what we're here for. You pay for us by your tax dollars. Okay, so we're here. We've been here for 25 years. We're going to be here next year. Okay, so if you don't need us today, you might need us in 3 months when things change. So that's our presentation for today. Thank you for your time.
And feel free to take any lunches that are left over home with you. So you're most welcome to that. Yes.
You did all the work.